day 36. We had a good discussion on the floor today. Did the final passage for hate crimes, a discussion on water issues in southern Utah. So why don't we begin with questions?
Thatcher, can you speak to how you think the bill will do over on the House side?
Well, I think that is a better question for Representative Perry. He's hopeful, which makes me hopeful.
Talk about how you got to 18 votes, because at the beginning of the session you couldn't even win over a majority of the GOP caucus, at least initially. How did you get to 18 votes?
Persistence. I think it's an issue that once you get it, you get it, and you can't un-get it. I know that that's a terrible quote, but there it is. And so a lot of people hadn't ever really given it thought. We know that we are opposed to the idea of punishing thoughts and feelings. And so the biggest challenge and the biggest hurdle I had to overcome was showing that this is tied to action. This is tied to a specific and deliberate action and not thoughts and feelings. I've seen posts on Facebook where people are losing their minds that we're going to put people in jail for saying the N-word, and I can reason with rational people, but I can't. You know, there are some people who are just never going to get past the emotions tied to the concept of hate crimes. And so I think what you saw today was, people have taken the time to dig in, to understand the issue, and I think we're moving forward with good policy.
You mentioned that you wanted your colleagues to listen to the advice that they're getting from people they trust on this bill. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints did come out prior to the session saying that they would not oppose hate crimes legislation, where in the past it was perceived that they did. How much of a factor was that?
Well, let's be clear. They didn't come out and say we're not opposing it this year. They came out and said we've never opposed it. Mm-hmm. That was their clarification. Right. I know that they got blamed for it, but I've said this at least 50 times, and I don't know that it's ever actually been picked up in a story. I have never blamed the LDS Church. The one comment that I had that I believe was maybe a little misconstrued was, I did say to Mr. Stevens in the presence of a reporter that, listen, until you come out with a public statement, there are plenty of people who are going to speak on your behalf. I've heard at least 5 different versions of what your opinion is, just only one of them from you. And so if you come out and you make a public statement, then I think it clarifies things. So I was very glad they did it this year.
So, Lisa, I think you heard on the floor today that it's a division among ideas. I think it just isn't a particular organization or anything else. I believe you heard quite a diverse, well, actually more yesterday, because of the debate actually happened yesterday, but more of the questions that people had. And I think the underlying question behind, I think most people's mind is a crime is a crime is a crime, and if we're going to elevate the crime, you ought to elevate it because of the crime and what happened in the intent. And I've talked about the Hi-Fi murderers, where people, it wasn't a hate crime, but they actually took a big pen and put it in front of the parents, put it in kids' ears and stepped on it, made them drink Drano. A heinous crime, and ought to be elevated. And I think that's where a lot of people feel that a crime is a crime, and I think they having a tough time wrapping around the classes, and so there were a lot more classes added. And I think if you saw those additional classes, it probably gave more support for it. So I think you heard that debate. Okay.
Did it make it easier, though, for your colleagues to vote for this because of the church's statement? Is that the advice you wanted them to keep in mind as they voted?
No, because again, people wanted to blame the church because that's a narrative that fits easily into the media. But the fact of the matter is, if the church really was the one holding this up, then why didn't it sail through as soon as they made their statement? I had to work my tail off for 3 weeks before I could even get enough support to get a hearing. And so the fact of the matter is, I know that that's the narrative, but it is not accurate. The LDS Church was not the roadblock on this.
No, I'm not suggesting they were the roadblock. I'm asking if when you asked your colleagues to listen to the advice they're getting from people they trust, if that wasn't a reference to the...
Oh, no. That was a reference to, yesterday we heard an argument that JRI was about lowering penalties, and they rattled off all of the policy advisory groups for criminal justice that supported JRI and said we shouldn't do this because all those guys supported JRI. And I merely pointed out that JRI wasn't about lowering penalties. It was about making penalties more appropriate, which 99 times out of 100 is lowering them. But in special cases, it should go up, and the same groups that supported JRI are in unanimous consent on this bill.
At least if I can help you on your
Go ahead,
question,
go
I'm
ahead.
just from the side, listening to other legislators that are deciding about whether or not to vote for the bill. I actually never heard anybody talk about the church's position or even ask the church's position. So I think Dan's correct. That he was debating it on the merits and working with legislators on the merits of the bill, not on who did or didn't support it.
Yeah. Senator Miller, any comments?
No, I think this is one of those issues that we have different viewpoints on, and about when it's appropriate to raise the penalty for the crime, and if they're specifically targeted because they are a member of a group, or whether on the other side, I think the saying, it's a crime is a crime, back to what the Senate President said. And I think you have to make a kind of listen to your constituents and their views on these issues, and also kind of examine the issue from your own kind of sets of values and viewpoints, and decide where you are. And I think that's what people did.
So, Senator Iwamoto or Ibsen, any comments?
I have a perspective because being a minority and having, especially when I went to California, but growing up, you know the difference with a hate crime because it impacts an entire community and you're at fear because of something that's happened to that community. And it's based on prejudice and hate. And so I did give examples on the floor, and I was talking about my experiences more when I went to law school and worked with the civil rights firm in the Korematsu case, and to see that, he was incarcerated just because of the color of his skin. And we saw that through documents after documents that it was, they said national security, but it was totally based on racism. And I remember clearly going to law school, and a young Vietnamese boy was killed, and he was the only child of this family, and the swastikas that were painted all over his grave, and the feeling, I've lived a different life here. I've been fortunate to grow up here and be with a lot of great people, but I still grew up knowing when I'd be called a Jap, and when I was young, and how, learning about how my parents or people in their generation, they had to ask permission to live in their neighborhoods. And so you see all that, and you see the internment camps. And so I had that, but I also had a lot of wonderful people to grow up with. And I didn't go through it like my parents did to the extent, but when I learned about it from my generation was more in California, learning about it in law school. and just experiencing when something happened, the impact. You know, I moved to California thinking it was so diverse and people accept you more, but there's more minorities and there's more things that happen. And so for me, it's an important step and something that we always say we don't want to repeat history, but it repeats over and over again. So we have to be vigilant. And so I'm really happy for this bill's passage and supported it.
You and several other members of the Minority Caucus spoke from personal experience with hate crimes. What impact do you think that had on the vote?
I still think people go by what their life experience is. And so, you know, as a minority, I've experienced that, and I experienced it a lot in California, and there's been many tragedies in California or people that I know that have represented people in that situation. So I think it's your life experience, and we all have those. It's not, you know, everyone has values, but it's based on your experiences. And so, you know, I respect my colleagues totally, and everybody has their own opinion, and that's what I like about we can share those experiences and hope that other people can see other communities and what they go through.
So it passed the Senate. What was the final vote count? I called it 18 votes. I think it goes with some momentum into the House. I think it's been, how many years have you been working on it, Senator Thatcher?
Only 4.
4. I think Senator Urquhart had a few years before that. So as it comes out of the Senate, I think it goes with some momentum. Okay, we'll see how they react to it, but I think that's 18 votes, a good number.
What's on the caucus agenda today?
Congressman Bishop will be here. We have a few.
I didn't know that. I should have known, but I didn't.
He's your guy, man. You ought to know.
Guy.
I'm here to help.
My guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few bills we'll be discussing. Probably a quick budget update, not a lengthy discussion at all. No discussion on tax reform. To answer your question.
Thank you.
We're waiting to get it, and I think we hopefully will sometime
Yeah.
before the end of the session.
I understand that there's another substitute in the works. How late can you get
Is that
this
the
bill
12th
over
or
here?
13th? Yeah.
It's a lot of paper.
Every time. Yeah.
We would like to give it a committee hearing, and our committees end next Monday. So we'd like to probably get the bill, hopefully end of the week, no later than Monday. I suppose we could get it Monday, but I think we'd have to get it the end of the week to get 24-hour notice on it. So we could always do a special committee hearing on Tuesday, if that's possible. So Friday or Monday, we'd like to have it by.
Is that the way, and I know I've asked this before, but now there's a possibility you'll have to change the rules a little bit to make sure it gets a hearing. Is that enough notice? Is that enough deference to a bill of this importance?
All I know is we're getting a lot of people weighing in on it, so we're getting a lot of public feedback. So I think we...
Public's engaged.
Yeah, the public's engaged.
Just have to look at our email accounts,
Yes.
et cetera.
A lot of love out there.
Well, what are you hearing from people?
I think there's obviously some concern, but I actually believe some people actually understand it and support it. I think as we look at it, one of the biggest things I think we're concerned about is, I've heard from senators at least, and Senator Hambert, I don't know if you want to comment, but just trying to make sure we take care of, we come with good tax policy. We don't, Utah's got a great economy. We don't want to do anything to disrupt that.
Yeah.
Any comments, Senator Hambert?
No, that's exactly it. And our biggest, we just want to make sure we get this right and make sure that we implement at the end of the day the right policy for Utah, for Utahns, and that's what we're working toward. I don't know how else to say it.
And there's a lot of time left in this session, so we'll see. Okay. The Hail Mary's in the air, though. I want you to know that. Okay?
It's been thrown.
It's been thrown. All right.
It's the slowest Hail Mary ever. Right? It's going to go for a week.
Well, it was slow motion.
Wow. And like I said, the last 2 weeks will feel like a year, and they started. Okay.
Speaking of feeling like a year, what about working late tonight?
You know, we're actually moving along really well with bill flow. I think we're ahead of last year. We didn't have a lot of Senate bills on the board. I counted a few as we came in. We had probably 4 or 5, and we've read in. We may be up just probably close to 20 now. So if we get back on the floor this afternoon, I really doubt that we'll need to stay tonight. Okay. So
Efficient.
does that disappoint
You
anyone?
spend all your time in the house.
Okay. All right. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for good news.
Absolutely.